So I'm hearing themes of self-determination, which leads to education and employment and being able to beat them at their own game. And of course the media presents all the negatives constantly. But Aboriginal identity, which you've alluded to, is extremely powerful, and you know, what you see on the media isn't really about Aboriginal identity. I'd like to talk to you about the sense of leadership in the Aboriginal community, and I understand that it is very shared, very reflective. You have elders who act as guides, who pass the wisdom to the community. Can you enlighten us as to how that whole dynamic works in the Aboriginal community? Because that to me is your source of moving forward with pride and strength, and showing the young people as well that they have something that's unique and powerful in their own customs and their own cultural life. Can you tell us, how does one become an elder, and do women and men have the same leadership role in an Aboriginal community? And what is the role of an elder in the community as well?
Well, I don't see myself as an elder. I'm still too young. I've still got a lot of energy and whatnot. I'm a young chickadee, so I'm out there doing my thing, trying to help my mob and my community. It's really interesting that you asked me that question, because I was actually asked that question earlier today in what is the definition of an elder. And for me, I really can't answer that, because when you're not at that sense of feeling that, you know, when is that time to be an elder? I think for me, you know, elders are the key to how the community works, you know, and how decisions are made in the community. Because some of the things I've noticed in the community, I don't know about you guys, but starting to see things moving in the community where a lot of the elders aren't being consulted in what's actually going on in different programs that are happening. And it's really important that for us as workers and for young people in the community, when there are things going on in the community, they need to talk to the elders to keep that relationship between elders and ourselves becoming more positive, you know, because our elders are the ones that are there to say, to guide us, to tell us what, you know, give us ideas of what's going to work and what's not going to work, but keeping us reminded of, you know, past stories and past experiences, but allowing our younger generations to get a bit of fresh new blood and new ideas, and allowing the elders to let our young people in the community to start listening to our young people. You know, sometimes I feel, you know, not all the time, but sometimes I feel elders are still there. They still want to be in power, and they still want to, you know, whereas what I've noticed in quite a few years is that, God, there's some deadly young people out there in our community, and really positive young people, and you know, they're the sort of people I want to be backing, because, you know, I want to make sure we're in the 21st century now. I want to make sure that my Aboriginal culture is still alive and well and happening, but I want to make sure that all our young kids know how to read and write.
For me, an elder, when I was growing up, I was in the era in the 70s, and I went with my parents. My father, he runs the Aboriginal Koori Men's Group. He's an elder, and my mother, she does a lot of art in the community. When I was about 7 or 8, they was always in the Illawarra, the Culture Centre in Kenny Street. Back then it was a little old house termites. It was all falling to pieces around us. But for us kids, it's like, oh, that was a meeting place. That's where, you know, community always met. We had Christmases in there. We had a black Santa Claus. We, you know, there was a group of elders in Kenny Street, like Auntie Mary Davis, and there was Auntie Jean Morris, Auntie Dolly Henry. I was a kid just hearing them, and Auntie Linda Davis, they'd sit there and they'd be yarning away and talking about stories and that, and then, you know, talking about land rights and, you know, what sort of things need to change in the community, like health, you know, people are dying around us, you know, nothing's happening in health and education, and, you know, and I was a kid and I'm there going, oh wow, these women are amazing, like, just hearing their stories and where they come from, you know, living on the mission and living in a car and had, you know, kids and couldn't get a house, and, you know, and I sort of was sitting there going, well, you know, they're Aboriginal and I'm Aboriginal, you know, but I, you know, my mum and dad's got a roof over our head, and, you know, we've got somewhere to live, and, you know, and I thought I was a queen because my parents sort of, you know, just seeing the struggles, like what was happening around, and hearing, you know, what happened, like my mum and dad just sort of, you know, put a roof over our head, and we had everything, like we thought we had everything. And then as I got a bit older, we went to a land rights with all the old elders sitting up on a bus, and we thought it was grand because we got all these old women sitting up there who, you know, was telling us all these old yarns, what happened to them when they were kids. And so we went up to Canberra and we was shocked because people like Gary Foley was there going, land rights, and we were standing going, oh my God, what's going on? And all these police were coming, and, you know, it was in the oldest bus, and all the old girls were just standing there putting hands on their hips and saying, you know, like, you know, we want land rights and want it to happen now, you're not doing anything. And, you know, and we was part of that, like getting shoveled away and pushed, and, you know, it was only kids, and I was going, oh my God, is this what happens? And we felt the racism there, and so anyway, we ended up coming back to Wollongong, and then we went to on a camp or an actual walk with Dutch Kennedy and was kids, and he's telling us all these stories about how it feels to be Aboriginal. We go, oh wow, you know, like we're hearing about Captain Cook at school, and, you know, I used to, you know, kids used to say to me, oh Janelle, you know, go home and use soap, you need soap. And they go, well, you know, how come they're saying that to me? Why? And, you know, they were saying because I was black, my skin, that I didn't use soap. And when we went on this walk with Dutch, he took us on a cultural walk and he showed us all the paintings on the caves, and, you know, there was about 15, 20 of us, young ones, and, you know, we were sitting there and going, oh, you know, I was giggling and thought, you know, oh, now what's he going to show us, you know, how to be Aboriginal, how's he going to show us to be Aboriginal? And then we got up to the top and we sort of, everyone went quiet, and, you know, we had this little eerie feeling like all these eyes were watching us, and our hair was sticking up, and I started getting frightened. I was saying, Mum, what's going on? How come I'm feeling like this? And she said, no, that's right, you just, you know, and so Dutch kept talking and telling us about the history up at Breaker's Nose. So anyway, after that we come back down from the mountain, and from that day on I was like, hang on a minute, like, you know, we went to somewhere where, you know, there was sacred sites, and, you know, we could feel what happened there. Like, I could feel the pain of and death and sorrow, and, you know, and all us kids on the bus were just sat there all quiet and just was reflecting on, you know, what just happened to us. So then, as we grew up, as I was growing up and going into the culture centre and going to the Aboriginal Medical Service, which was an old building falling to pieces, and, you know, and just seeing the changes, like, from what these women, strong women in our community. There was Uncle Ted Davis, and there's a lot of old fellas there too who was pushing these women. Like, they'll stand usually I look at it, the Aboriginal women are the backbone of the family, and, you know, these men were standing aside and letting these women, you know, just go for it, you know, but they were supporting them in a different way. But these women were so powerful that, you know, as I was growing up, I'm there going, oh, I looked up to these women. They were the elders. They told me stories. They taught me things, how you feel and how you get passionate about who you are and where you're from. And with that, just being around those women as they passed on, the elders, what was coming through, it's like my elders are gone. Like they went really quick. They went too quick. My kids didn't sort of get to know that part, and I always put in my kids, you know, like the elders, you know, they're older than you, you know, respect your elders. Like they go, but Mum, they're aunties, uncles. And I said, yeah, call them auntie, uncle. But as you say, like elders, to me, they've got to earn the respect. They've got to, you know, do things and make things happen. You know, they live for culture. They. Oh, I think I'm talking too much. Yeah. Yeah, I think I did. Yeah, and with the elders, like, you know, I look up to elders. To this day, elders, you know, they hold the key to our communities, our culture. They're our guidance. Like I always go from, you know, that they guide, you know, where we're from, who we are, and what's needed in the future. And so with the elders, to me, is like, yeah, age, as you get older, you learn, you get wiser. Yeah, you know, I eat, breathe, sleep, community. I always say that, you know, like, you know, I'm proud. And an elder, to me, I look up to as, you know, someone who's trying to make change, or is out there, you know, helping the young ones and trying to close this gap with this lost, stolen generation, because there's a lost generation there. Like with stolen generation, affected all of us. It wasn't just, you know, the kids were taken away, but it also affects the mothers and the brothers and the sisters who weren't taken away, and their kids. And, you know, because the fear what we held onto from those days is, you know, like the elders who stood up and said, you know, enough's enough, and this is, you know, like passed down their knowledge to us, younger generation. There's a bit just lost. There's a lost generation there with the elders connecting with the younger ones, and, you know, like working with grassroots people is I try and get these young ones to get that respect back to listen to the elders, like the ones what we still got. And yeah, to me, like elders is, you know, that's I look at that as that's where, you know, all our knowledge comes from, and that's what we've got to capture to bring these younger ones and close that gap to get them to actually that respect for elders. Sorry, I must have lucky I didn't run this battery out.
So, in relation to the issue around being an elder, I don't come from country, but I do have young people, you know, within the community and even work colleagues who refer to me as auntie. Usually, you know, there's this misnomer, I suppose, that when you're called auntie, you're considered to be an elder within your community. But for me, it's a show of respect. Yeah. People are calling me auntie out of respect, not because I'm an elder within the community. But in relation to where I come from, I am. I'm actually the matriarch of my family. I have very important cultural responsibilities to my family because I am the eldest living female within my community since we lost my grandmother. So, and I think that's probably a very important point, you know, that Auntie Syl was talking about. I think what's missing today is the issue around, you know, you've all heard the saying, it takes a community to raise a child, and I think that's unfortunately what is missing and what we've lost from our culture is that connection, is the responsibility on a community, you know. And I actually have some fairly strong views politically. You know, you know, I got off my butt and did something about my life. I could have played victim in relation to what has taken place historically in regards to my ancestors, but I didn't. I took a different path I chose a different road in relation to what I was going to do. That certainly didn't make me less Aboriginal because I chose that path, or disconnect me from my community because I chose that path. You know, I've been called an uptown nigger, you know, whatever the case may be, because I've worked very hard for the things that I have today. You know, I own a home, I have a vehicle, you know, my 2 children, I ensured that they were going to get a good education in their HSC. You know, and that's something, that is a commitment that I made to myself when I was very young. As I said, I mentioned my grandfather. So I think also Aboriginal people have a responsibility to do something in relation to the path that they choose to take, you know, down the track. Yes, we understand, you know, the policies and the things that have taken place, but I also believe that we have a responsibility to change, as a community, to change the way we go forth in this country today. And I think it's very important, you know, that that point is made. I mean, we've mentioned the Northern Territory intervention. Again, I have very strong views in relation to that. And income management. You know, the issue I have with the Northern Territory intervention is the fact that it was race-based. It was blanket. It was put across across a whole community and remote communities. And the fact that they had to suspend the Racial Discrimination Act says to you that the policy was racially discriminatory. But I actually believe in relation to income management, because I've seen it personally and what it does to families. You know, and I think,
can I just ask you, was it mandatory income management you believe in, or voluntary?
Well, I mean, I believe that too. It can be both. You know, I believe that, I mean, it was all furphy in relation to the Northern Territory Intervention anyway, because it was based on, you know, child molestation. It certainly wasn't the case. You know, but it certainly did highlight child neglect. And I think they're the issues. You know, that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, we need to be getting on the front foot in relation to addressing those issues. You know, and income management is a way of ensuring that does not happen. You know, because as I sort of said, there are families and there are parents who have serious issues, and unfortunately that impacts on families, on children. There has to be a way of addressing that. And I can't, as an Aboriginal person, turn a blind eye to that happening within communities. Someone needs to be able to take a stand and start from somewhere in relation to those issues. You know, I think Joe mentioned that something was happening in Shellharbour City. Well, I'm the chairperson of the Shellharbour Local Advisory Group. And that is the Better Futures Local Solutions Initiative, which was rolled out across the country in 10 place-based areas, and Shellharbour is one of those areas. And income management is not something that is being rolled out in Shellharbour City. But there is voluntary income management, and people, you know, you have parents who have done that and undertaken that in a voluntary capacity to change their lives, you know, and to ensure a better future for their children. You know, so I think it's also important about us being honest and being realistic about, if we're going to have real change, we actually have to acknowledge what we're going to do as Aboriginal people, and acknowledge the issues of how difficult it is. You know, and come up with solutions rather than criticising one another in relation to how we're going to address those issues.